Mr. President and Prime Minister and other distinguished members of your group, I know you've taken on the task of writing a new Constitution. I think it's marvelous for you to have done that. I think you've taken on a task that is very, very difficult. But the difficulty is only exceeded by its importance. I mean, we've had a Constitution that's lasted us more than 200 years, and it has had many ups and downs. And I hope you won't look just at our Constitution, because you're writing what's best for your own country. And what happened in South Africa when they had a similar problem is they looked around at the Constitution of many nations. Now, I'll briefly mention three problems that they've had and what the problems that our framers had with this document. The first was, what's the right level of abstraction? How long should it be? How detailed should it be? Should it be very detailed? In which case you run the risk that little detailed parts become out of date and people get into the habit of amending it, and before you know it, you have 4,000 amendments to the Constitution. Some places, including California, my own state, I'll say, have tried that approach. It hasn't worked too well. But if you put in too little, there are important rights you might leave out. So I have no answer for you in that, but that's one of the problems you'll face. Then another one you're going to face is, well, what important values do you protect? Because really, this document here does 5 basic things, and many others in the world do those same 5 basic things. When I have to explain it in less than a minute or two, I say, you read this and you discover, first, it sets up some institutions for making laws that are democratically based. Congress, the presidency, it creates a democracy. But it is a special kind of democracy. It protects basic human rights, like freedom of speech, which is very important if you're going to keep your democracy. It assures a degree of equality. It divides power. In our case, with 309 million people, it divides that power vertically between states and the federal government, and horizontally between 3 branches, executive, legislative, and judicial. And it does that so no group of people within the government can become too powerful. And finally, it insists upon a rule of law. Now, protecting basic rights, dividing and separating power so no one can become too powerful, the protection of a degree of equality, a rule of law, all within the framework of a democracy, which is the basic point, are the ultimate things that underlie these documents. And there are others, but they're more matters of detail compared to those 5. But then the third, and I think the most difficult task of all, is something that you can't do just by what you write. In 1789, Alexander Hamilton and the others wrote this, and they thought they'd done a good job. And they had. But they realized it meant nothing. You might as well put it in the National Archives or simply hang it in a museum, unless people actually did what it said. And many, many nations, like the United States, then gave power to the judges to interpret this document. But there still was a problem. Why would judges do when they do something? Why would people do what judges say? Judges, as Hamilton pointed out, have no armies. They have no power of the purse. They're hardly even known. 308 million of our 309 million people are not judges, and they are not even lawyers. Not everyone realizes that, but it's true. And it's those 308 million ordinary citizens who really have to decide that they want a rule of law. Well, that's been a long, hard path for us. We did, after all, in the United States, have a period when land was taken from the Indians and the court said the land belongs to the Indians, and nobody would do what the judges said, including the president. We had a civil war, we had slavery, we had 80 years of legal segregation, and it wasn't till the end of that period that it really required President Eisenhower to send troops to Arkansas in order to enforce an integration order, that in fact people began really in tough cases to do what the judges said the Constitution required. namely, to end racial segregation. And even today, the court will decide things that are unpopular. They might be wrong, they're important, but the public will follow without riots, without shooting each other, without murdering each other, even unpopular things that are in this document. Now, if they didn't do that, we'd have a bad way of solving our problems. It would be called force. But because in front of me every day, I see people of every race, every religion, every point of view, and they're dedicated to solving their problems under law. My point is, whatever you write must be something that is understood, internalized, becomes force of habit by the people of your country who are not judges and who are not lawyers, and they have to understand why a rule of law is important. A rule of law which means we will do it when it's the law, even though we don't like it. That's hard, and it means bringing ordinary people, if not into your deliberations, at least into an understanding of what you're doing. So there you have the task, the right degree of specificity, what you're going to protect and what you're not, how to write it, how to assure the rights of the right ones, and how to get the people of the country to understand that it's important that they follow a rule of law. I know you'll be able to do that. It'll take time, it'll take effort, and it's a difficult, as I said, but very important task. I wish you the best of luck.